Zareth's massive wings folded against his scaled sides as he landed on the construction platform. The alien dragon's golden eyes scanned the bustling worksite where dozens of species labored together on the new orbital station. His pregnant mate, Liralai, shifted uncomfortably beside him, her normally graceful movements now awkward with the weight of their growing clutch. "The human area is just ahead," Zareth rumbled softly, his voice carrying the deep tones that marked his kind as natural leaders among the Galactic Union species. "Their medical facilities are supposed to be adequate for cross-species treatment." Liralay's silver scales rippled with anxiety. The pregnancy had been difficult from the start, and none of the traditional draconic healers had been able to ease her discomfort. When word reached them that the human construction crew had medical technology that worked on various alien biologies, Zareth had swallowed his pride and made the journey. Dragons were apex predators in their home system, feared and respected throughout the galaxy. For millennia, they had been the dominant military force in the Union, their natural armor, flight capabilities, and plasma breath making them nearly unstoppable in combat. The idea of seeking help from humans, a species barely 50 years into space travel, went against every instinct Zareth possessed. But for Liralai, he would endure any humiliation. The human section of the construction site buzzed with different energy than the rest of the station. Where other species worked in careful, methodical patterns refined over centuries, the humans seemed to operate on controlled chaos. They shouted to each other across impossible distances, gestured wildly while explaining concepts, and somehow managed to complete their assigned tasks ahead of schedule. Marcus Chen wiped sweat from his forehead and looked up from the structural plans spread across his temporary desk. As the human foreman for Section 7, he was responsible for coordinating his crew's work with the other species on the project. It wasn't easy. Humans had only been part of the Galactic Union for 2 generations, and most alien species still saw them as primitive newcomers. The prejudice didn't bother Marcus much anymore. In his 15 years working on various Union projects, he'd learned that results spoke louder than reputation. His crews might be loud and unconventional, but they got things done. A shadow passed over his work area, and Marcus looked up to see 2 enormous dragons circling overhead. He'd worked with draconics before, proud, powerful beings who rarely acknowledged other species as equals. These 2 were clearly a mated pair, judging by their synchronized flight patterns and the way the larger male positioned himself protectively near his companion. "Jenny," Marcus called to his medical officer, who was checking equipment nearby. "Looks like we might have visitors." Dr. Jennifer Walsh glanced up from her medical scanner, following Marcus's gaze to the approaching dragons. She'd seen enough alien species in her career to recognize the signs of distress in non-human body language. The female dragon's movements were labored, and her scales had the dull cast that often indicated illness or injury in reptilian species. "Medical emergency?" Jenny asked, already moving toward her treatment station. "Could be. Better prep the universal translator and get the bioscanner ready." The dragons landed on the platform with surprising gentleness, despite their massive size. The male, nearly 30 feet from nose to tail, approached Marcus with the careful dignity that seemed built into his species' DNA. When he spoke, his voice resonated through both the air and the translator device clipped to Marcus's collar. "Human Foreman," the dragon began, his golden eyes fixed on Marcus with an intensity that would have sent most beings fleeing. "I am Zareth of the Western Reaches. This is my mate, Liralai. We require assistance." Marcus stepped forward, ignoring the instinctive fear response that his mammalian brain generated when faced with a creature that could incinerate him without effort. "Marcus Chen, Section 7 Foreman. What kind of assistance?" "Medical," Zareth replied, glancing back at his mate with obvious concern. Our healers have been unable to help with complications in her pregnancy. We were told that human medical technology might provide solutions that traditional methods cannot. Jenny approached carrying her medical kit, her movements slow and non-threatening. She'd worked with enough dangerous alien species to know that pregnant females of any species could be unpredictably aggressive if they perceived a threat. "I'm Dr. Walsh," she said, addressing both dragons equally. "I'd be happy to help, but I'll need to run some scans first." "Is that acceptable?" Lyrelai spoke for the first time, her voice slightly higher pitched than her mates but carrying the same natural authority. "We have heard that human medical practices are unconventional. What does your examination involve?" "Non-invasive bioscans first," Jenny explained, activating her handheld device. "It's similar to what you might call sensing magic in your culture, but we use technology instead of natural ability. Then I might need to take some samples. Blood, scale scrapings, that sort of thing." Zareth's eyes narrowed. "Blood samples? You wish to taste my mate's blood?" The question hung in the air for a moment before Marcus realized the cultural misunderstanding. In Draconic society, the consumption of another being's blood was either a sign of extreme dominance or a ritual of the most intimate bonding. To them, a medical blood draw would seem like an incredibly aggressive or inappropriately personal act. "Not taste," Marcus said quickly. "Analyze. We use machines to examine blood for signs of disease or chemical imbalances. The doctor doesn't consume it. It goes into a device that tells us what might be wrong." Lyrelai shifted uncomfortably, her scales rustling against the metal platform. "Your healing methods are strange to us. In our society, healers draw upon the life force directly through touch and ancient knowledge. This mechanical approach seems cold." "Different doesn't mean wrong," Jenny said gently. "Human medicine has helped dozens of species in the Union solve problems that traditional methods couldn't handle. We see the body as a complex machine that sometimes needs adjustment rather than a mystical energy system that needs rebalancing." "Machine," Zareth repeated, testing the word. "You see living beings as machines?" "More like incredibly sophisticated biological computers," Marcus explained. "Every process in the body follows rules that we can understand and sometimes fix when they go wrong. It's not mystical, but it's no less amazing." Jenny activated her scanner and began taking readings of Lyrelai's vital signs. The device hummed quietly as it analyzed everything from heart rate to hormone levels to the electromagnetic patterns generated by the developing eggs in her reproductive system. "Interesting," Jenny murmured, studying the readouts. "Your body chemistry is trying to support 6 developing offspring, but you're only producing enough nutrients for about 4. That's why you've been feeling weak and sick." Zareth's protective posture intensified. "Is this dangerous? Will she survive the clutching?" "With the right treatment, absolutely. But you'll need supplements that your body can't produce naturally. Most draconic pregnancies only involve 2 or 3 offspring. 6 is unusually large even for your species." "The bloodline of the Western Reaches has always been blessed with large clutches," Lyrelai said with obvious pride, despite her discomfort. "My grandmother bore 8 young in a single hatching." "And I bet she had similar problems," Jenny said with a smile. "Large litters put extra stress on any mother's system, no matter what species. The good news is that this is completely treatable." Jenny moved to her treatment station and began preparing an injection device. The sight of the needle-like apparatus caused both dragons to tense visibly. "What is that weapon?" Zareth demanded, his voice dropping to a dangerous rumble. "It's not a weapon," Marcus said firmly. "It's a delivery system for medicine. The doctor is going to inject nutrients and hormones directly into your mate's bloodstream to help her support the pregnancy." "Inject?" Lyrelai's voice rose with alarm. "You mean to pierce my scales? To wound me?" "A tiny puncture that heals in seconds," Jenny explained patiently. It's the fastest way to get the medicine into your system where it can help. Zareth stepped closer to his mate, his massive form radiating protective aggression. No. We do not permit wounding, no matter how small. Find another way. Jenny sighed, recognizing the cultural barrier. In her experience, some species required extensive explanation before they would accept any medical procedure that seemed violent or invasive. Dragons, with their armor-like scales and warrior culture, apparently fell into this category. I could prepare an oral medication, she said, but it would take much longer to work and wouldn't be as effective. The injection would provide relief within hours. Oral medication? Zareth asked suspiciously. You mean food? Medicine mixed with something pleasant to taste. Like adding healing herbs to meat, but using synthesized compounds instead of plants. Lyrelay shifted again, clearly uncomfortable. How long would this oral treatment take to show effect? Several days, maybe a week. And you'd need to take doses every few hours for the next month. Jenny looked at the dragon with genuine sympathy. I know the injection seems frightening, but it's really the best option. Show me this injection process, Zareth commanded. Demonstrate on yourself first. Jenny blinked in surprise. I'm sorry. If it is safe and painless as you claim, show us. Use the device on your own body. Marcus started to object, but Jenny held up a hand. She understood the dragon's logic. In a warrior culture, any leader would be expected to face danger before asking others to do the same. That's actually not a bad idea, she said, loading the injection device with a harmless saline solution. Watch carefully. She rolled up her sleeve and positioned the injector against her arm. The device hissed softly as it delivered the liquid through her skin, leaving nothing but a tiny red dot that was already fading. No pain, she said, flexing her arm normally. No damage. Just medicine going where it needs to go. Both dragons watched intently, their enhanced vision picking up details that other species might miss. They saw the lack of actual injury, the quick healing of the tiny puncture, and Jenny's completely relaxed behavior afterward. Your scales are much thinner than mine, Lirali observed. Would the process be different for draconic physiology? The device adjusts automatically for skin thickness and density, Jenny explained. It senses the resistance and compensates. For you, it might take a second longer to penetrate, but the principle is the same. Zareth moved closer to examine the injection device, his predatory instincts cataloging every detail of its construction. This tool, it could be used as a weapon. So could a fork, Marcus said dryly. Intent matters more than capability. Your species is strange, Zareth mused. You turn weapons into healing tools and approach medicine like warfare against disease. Very different from our way. Different doesn't mean wrong, Jenny repeated. Human medicine comes from the idea that knowledge and technology can solve problems that magic and intuition can't handle. We might lack natural healing abilities, but we make up for it with tools. Lirelai made a decision that surprised both herself and her mate. I will accept this injection treatment. Lirelai, Zareth warned, his voice heavy with concern. Are you certain? Once done, it cannot be undone. Our young are worth any risk, she replied firmly, and these humans seem competent, despite their strange methods. Jenny prepared a fresh injection with the actual medicine, a carefully calibrated mixture of nutrients, hormones, and supplements designed for reptilian physiology. She'd treated pregnant aliens before, but never a dragon. The challenge was exciting rather than intimidating. This might feel strange at first, she warned as she positioned the device. The medicine will spread through your system quickly, and you might experience some tingling or warmth. The injector hissed against Lerelay's silver scales, penetrating the armor-like surface with surprising ease. The dragon's eyes widened as the medicine entered her bloodstream, her enhanced senses immediately detecting the foreign substances circulating through her body. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Lirelai straightened, her scales brightening noticeably as her color improved. The listless quality that had marked her movements disappeared, replaced by the natural grace and power of her species. "I feel better," she said with obvious amazement. "The weakness is gone. The nausea has stopped. How is this possible?" "Your body was starving on a cellular level," Jenny explained. "The medicine gave it what it needed to function properly. Think of it like adding fuel to a fire that was burning too low." Zareth stared at his mate's transformation with something approaching disbelief. "In minutes, you have accomplished what our best healers could not achieve in weeks. How do you possess such knowledge?" "We don't rely on intuition or traditional wisdom," Marcus said. "We test, measure, analyze, and experiment. When something works, we find out why. When it doesn't, we try something else." "Your species learns by doing rather than by knowing," Zareth observed. "Fascinating." "Every species has its strengths," Jenny said diplomatically. "Dragons have natural magical abilities that humans will never possess. Humans have technological solutions that work even without magic." Lirelay tested her wings, spreading them wide and feeling strength flow through muscles that had been weak for weeks. "This medicine, how often must I take it?" "I'd like to give you another injection in a week to monitor your progress," Jenny said. "After that, probably once every 2 weeks until your clutch hatches. The treatment is completely safe for both you and your offspring." "We are in your debt," Zareth said formally. "The Western Reaches will remember this kindness." "No debt necessary," Marcus replied. "We're all part of the Union. Helping each other is what we do." As the dragons prepared to leave, Zareth turned back to Marcus with curiosity in his golden eyes. "Your species has been part of the Union for only 50 years. Yet you seem to understand medical treatment for beings you had never encountered until recently. How is this possible?" "We're fast learners," Marcus said with a grin. "And we're not afraid to admit when we don't know something. Asking questions is how we get answers." "Most species consider asking for help a sign of weakness," Lirelay observed. "Most species aren't human," Jenny said cheerfully. "We've built our entire civilization on the idea that working together makes everyone stronger." The dragons exchanged a look that spoke of private communication between bonded mates. Finally, Zareth nodded to Marcus. "We would like to learn more about human methods. Perhaps we could arrange for some of our healers to observe your techniques." "Absolutely," Marcus said. "Medical knowledge should be shared, not hoarded." As the dragons took flight, their powerful wings carrying them toward their ship, Jenny and Marcus watched them go with satisfaction. "Think they'll actually follow through?" Jenny asked. "With dragons, you never know," Marcus replied. "But they seem like the type who keep their word." Neither human realized that their simple act of medical assistance was about to trigger a cascade of events that would shake the foundations of the Galactic Union's carefully maintained balance of power. They had just demonstrated to one of the Union's most powerful military species that human technology could accomplish what traditional methods could not. And in a galaxy where respect was earned through demonstrated capability, that kind of revelation could change everything. 3 days after treating Lirelai, Marcus Chen found himself facing an unexpected problem. His medical station, designed to handle minor injuries and routine health checks for his construction crew, was surrounded by aliens. Not just any aliens, representatives from some of the most powerful species in the Galactic Union. "Foreman Chen," announced Commander Vexhai, a tall crystalline whose translucent blue body reflected light in prismatic patterns. We require consultation regarding human medical capabilities. Marcus looked past the commander to see at least 30 different beings waiting in what could generously be called a line. There were more draconics, several ethereals floating in their environmental suits, a delegation of the plant-like Verdani, and species he didn't even recognize. Jenny?" Marcus called to his medical officer, who was already looking overwhelmed by the crowd. "I think we might have a situation here." Dr. Jennifer Walsh emerged from her treatment area, wiping her hands on a towel, having just finished examining a luminari who complained of dimming bioluminescence. In the past 3 days, she'd treated more alien patients than in her entire previous career. "It started with a few dragons wanting the same treatment as Lyrali," she explained quietly to Marcus. "Word spread through their fleet, then to their trading partners, then to their military allies. Now half the station wants human medical attention. For what? We're not miracle workers." "That's the thing," Jenny said, her voice tight with concern. "To them, we kind of are. Most galactic medicine is based on magical healing, energy manipulation, or ancient herbal knowledge passed down through generations. But our technological approach can solve problems that their traditional methods miss entirely." Commander Vexhai stepped closer, his crystalline form chiming softly as he moved. "Human Walsh, my people suffer from frequency degradation. Our harmonic resonance becomes unstable as we age, leading to structural collapse. Our singers have been unable to correct this condition for 3 of our individuals. Can your technology provide assistance?" Jenny blinked. Frequency degradation sounds like it might be similar to osteoporosis in humans. A structural integrity problem at the molecular level. I'd need to run some scans to be sure. "You believe you can help where our most skilled singers have failed?" "I won't know until I examine the patients, but yes, it's possible. Human medicine is really good at fixing structural problems." The implications of this conversation were beginning to dawn on Marcus. Throughout the galaxy, each species had developed healing methods based on their natural abilities. Dragons used life force manipulation, ethereals employed energy healing, crystallines relied on harmonic resonance, and dozens of other species each had their own traditional approaches. But humans had no natural healing abilities at all. Instead, they developed technology that could analyze and treat problems from a completely different angle. "Jenny," Marcus said quietly, "do you realize what's happening here?" "We're about to become very popular," she guessed. "We're about to accidentally revolutionize galactic medicine." Before Jenny could respond, a new voice cut through the crowd. "Humans, you will cease this activity immediately." The gathering turned to see Healer Mordant, the station's official medical authority, striding toward them with obvious anger. The tall, robed figure belonged to the Ascended, an ancient species that had evolved beyond physical form centuries ago and now existed as pure energy contained within mechanical bodies. "Healer Mordant," Marcus said carefully, "what seems to be the problem?" "The problem," Mordant replied, his artificial voice resonating with authority, "is that you are practicing medicine without proper certification from the Union Medical Council. You are providing treatments using unproven methods to species whose physiology you barely understand." "Unproven?" Commander Vexhai interjected, his crystalline form brightening with indignation. "These humans cured frequency degradation in my subordinate. Our singers declared him beyond help, yet in 20 minutes, your unproven methods restored his harmonic integrity completely." Mordant's mechanical head turned toward the crystalline. "Impossible. Frequency degradation is a natural consequence of aging. It cannot be reversed." "Yet here we are," said a new voice. Zareth landed on the platform with his usual dramatic flair, Lyrale beside him. The female dragon's scales gleamed with health, and her movements showed none of the previous weakness. "My mate carries 6 healthy offspring thanks to human intervention. Their unproven methods accomplished in minutes what traditional healing could not achieve in months. Coincidence, Mordant dismissed, or temporary improvement that will soon fade. Would you care to examine me and make that determination scientifically? Lyrelei challenged, using the human term deliberately. Or will you simply assume your ancient knowledge is superior without bothering to test it? The tension on the platform was becoming palpable. Marcus realized they were witnessing something much larger than a simple disagreement about medical practices. This was a clash between old and new ways of thinking about healing itself. If I may, Jenny interjected diplomatically, why don't we work together? I'd be happy to share our diagnostic data with Healer Mordant. Maybe we can learn from each other. Learn? Mordant's voice carried obvious disdain. Child, my species has practiced medicine for over 10,000 years. We have forgotten more about healing than your primitive world has ever discovered. The insult hung in the air like a physical thing. Marcus felt his jaw tighten, but before he could respond, Zareth spoke in a voice that carried clear warning. Careful, Ascended One. You speak to the beings who accomplished what your 10,000 years of knowledge could not. A few lucky coincidences prove nothing, Mordant replied dismissively. Human medicine is crude mechanical manipulation. It lacks the sophistication and deep understanding that true healing requires. Then prove it, Jenny said quietly. All conversation stopped as every being on the platform turned to look at her. I'm sorry? Mordant asked. Prove it, Jenny repeated, louder this time. If human medicine is so primitive and your methods are so superior, then let's test them against each other. Scientific comparison, controlled conditions, measurable results. Marcus stared at his medical officer in amazement. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, who usually avoided confrontation at all costs, had just challenged one of the most respected healers in the Union to what amounted to a medical duel. You cannot be serious, Mordant said. You would dare to compare your crude tools against methods perfected over millennia? Why not? Jenny asked innocently. If your techniques are truly superior, you have nothing to lose, unless you're afraid that 10,000 years of tradition might not be as effective as you think. The crowd of aliens was listening with rapt attention. Challenges like this were rare in Union space, where respect for ancient knowledge and established authority was deeply ingrained in most cultures. The young human was essentially calling out the medical establishment of the entire galaxy. Commander Vexhai stepped forward, his crystalline form chiming with what Marcus had learned to recognize as excitement. I propose formal testing. 3 cases, 1 crystalline with frequency degradation, 1 ethereal with energy dissipation syndrome, and 1 Verdani with chlorophyll corruption. Each healer treats 1 patient using their preferred methods. We measure results. This is absurd, Mordant protested. I will not lower myself to competing with primitive techniques. Then you forfeit, Zareth said bluntly, and admit that human methods are superior to yours. The dragon's words struck home. In the warrior culture that dominated much of Union politics, backing down from a direct challenge was seen as admission of weakness. Mordant found himself trapped by his own arrogance. Very well, the Ascended Healer said stiffly, but when your crude methods fail, I expect formal apologies and immediate cessation of unauthorized medical activities. And when our methods work, Marcus said, stepping up beside Jenny, you publicly acknowledge that human medicine deserves respect and official recognition. The agreement was made before Marcus fully realized what they'd committed to. Within an hour, the impromptu medical competition had been formalized by the station commander, with observers from a dozen different species arranging to witness the event. Jenny spent the next few hours frantically reviewing her medical databases, trying to prepare for conditions she'd never treated before. The station's computer network gave her access to Union medical records, but most of the information was based on traditional healing approaches that didn't translate well to technological medicine. "Any regrets?" Marcus asked, as she calibrated her equipment for the third time. "Too late for regrets now," she replied. "Besides, I meant what I said. If our methods don't work, we shouldn't be using them. And if they do work, people deserve to know about it." The testing took place in the station's main medical bay, with representatives from each major species observing. The 3 patients were selected by mutual agreement. All suffered from conditions that traditional healing had declared incurable or untreatable. Seren, the crystalline with frequency degradation, had been slowly losing structural integrity for months. His once clear, crystalline body was clouded with stress fractures, and his harmonic resonance was noticeably off-pitch. Kayla, the ethereal, existed in a state of constant energy dissipation. Her environmental suit couldn't maintain the energy levels her species required, leaving her weak and barely functional. Thyman, the Verdani, suffered from what could only be described as plant cancer. His chlorophyll processing systems were corrupting, turning his normally vibrant green bark a sickly brown. Healer Mordant began with the crystalline, using the traditional ascended methods. He extended energy tendrils from his mechanical body, probing Seren's harmonic frequencies and attempting to realign the disrupted patterns. For nearly an hour, he worked with obvious skill and deep knowledge of crystalline physiology. The result was a slight improvement in clarity, but the fundamental frequency degradation remained unchanged. Jenny approached Seren with her medical scanner, taking detailed readings of his crystalline structure. Within minutes, she'd identified the problem. Impurities in his silicon matrix were creating resonance damping. Her solution was startlingly simple: a targeted ultrasonic treatment that would shake loose the accumulated impurities, followed by a mineral supplement to strengthen the crystal structure. 20 minutes later, Seren's body rang with perfect harmonic clarity, his crystalline form bright and clear once again. The crowd of observers murmured in amazement. Frequency degradation was supposed to be irreversible, a natural consequence of aging that no healing method could address. Yet the human had not just treated it, but actually restored the patient to better condition than he'd enjoyed in years. Mordant's treatment of the ethereal Kayla followed traditional energy manipulation techniques. He attempted to boost her natural energy levels using his own power, channeling force directly into her weakened systems. The treatment provided temporary improvement, but within an hour her energy levels had dropped back to their previous state. Jenny's approach was entirely different. She analyzed the composition of Kayla's environmental suit and identified inefficiencies in its energy conversion systems. Rather than trying to boost Kayla's energy levels, she modified the suit's systems to better match her specific metabolic requirements. The result was dramatic. Kayla's energy readings stabilized at normal levels and remained there, her suit now properly calibrated to sustain her species' unique needs. By the time they reached the Verdani patient, the medical establishment's confidence was visibly shaken. Mordant's treatment of Thymon followed ancient botanical healing traditions, using energy manipulation to attempt to purify the corrupted chlorophyll systems. The treatment showed no measurable improvement. Jenny's examination revealed that Thymon's condition was essentially an autoimmune disorder. His plant immune system was attacking healthy tissue along with actual threats. Her treatment involved a carefully targeted immune suppressant that would allow his natural healing processes to function properly while stopping the destructive autoimmune response. Within hours, the brown patches on Thymon's bark were fading, replaced by healthy green growth. The silence in the medical bay was profound. 3 patients with supposedly incurable conditions had been successfully treated using human methods that none of the traditional healers had even considered. Healer Mordant stood motionless for a long moment before speaking. "This is impossible. These conditions are documented as untreatable. Our medical texts compiled over millennia clearly state that such ailments are beyond the reach of healing arts. Your medical texts were wrong, Jenny said gently. Not because your ancestors were stupid, but because they were looking at these problems from only one angle. When you only have energy manipulation tools, everything looks like an energy problem. When you have technological tools, you can find technological solutions. Commander Vexhai stepped forward, his restored harmonic frequency creating beautiful chimes as he moved. Human Walsh, you have accomplished what our most skilled healers declared impossible. How do you explain this? Different doesn't mean better or worse, Jenny replied. It just means different. Your traditional healing methods can do things that our technology can't touch, but our technology can solve problems that traditional healing can't address. The smart approach is to use both. Both? Mordant asked, and for the first time, his artificial voice carried uncertainty rather than arrogance. Collaboration, Marcus said. Sharing knowledge, testing ideas against each other. That's how progress happens. The implications of what had just occurred were staggering. For thousands of years, galactic civilization had been built on the principle that ancient wisdom was superior to new ideas. That tradition was more reliable than innovation. The humans had just demonstrated that this fundamental assumption might be wrong. Over the next few days, word of the medical competition spread throughout the Union faster than anyone had expected. Species that had never shown interest in human activities suddenly wanted to know everything about their technological approach to healing. Trade delegations began arriving at the construction station, ostensibly for business, but actually hoping to consult with the human medical team. Diplomatic messages flooded the communication networks as governments tried to arrange formal exchanges of medical knowledge. The Galactic Medical Council, faced with undeniable evidence that their established methods had limitations, found themselves in the unprecedented position of having to reconsider policies that hadn't been questioned in centuries. I think we might have started something, Jenny said to Marcus as they watched yet another delegation of alien dignitaries disembark from their ships. Started something? Marcus laughed. Jenny, we've accidentally triggered a medical revolution. Half the galaxy wants human doctors, and the other half is arguing about whether ancient healing traditions are still valid. Is that bad? Marcus looked out at the bustling station, where human medical techniques were being discussed in a dozen different languages by species that had never paid much attention to humanity before. Ask me in a few months, he said. But I have a feeling things are about to get very interesting. Neither of them realized that their medical revolution was about to intersect with galactic politics in ways that would make their current situation seem simple by comparison. The Union's power structure was built on the premise that older species were wiser and more capable than newer ones. What happened when the newest species in the galaxy started proving that assumption wrong? The emergency klaxons began wailing at 0347 station time, jolting Marcus Chen from his sleep. As he rushed to the command center, emergency lights bathed the corridors in pulsing red, and his communicator crackled with urgent messages in multiple alien languages. "What's the situation?" Marcus asked as he burst into the command center, where Station Commander Thylex was coordinating with various department heads. "Medical emergency," the four-armed Nexari replied, his usually calm demeanor showing signs of strain. "Multiple critical casualties from a transport collision near the station. The victims include species we've never treated before. A diplomatic convoy from the Outer Rim territories." Through the viewports, Marcus could see the wreckage of two vessels drifting in space, their hull plating twisted and torn. Rescue shuttles were already launching, bringing in the survivors. "How bad are we talking?" Marcus asked. 37 beings from 6 different species, Commander Thylex replied. 3 of those species have never been part of Union medical databases. Our traditional healers have no experience with their physiology. And they're dying faster than we can figure out how to help them. The implications hit Marcus immediately. Over the past 2 weeks, word of human medical capabilities had spread throughout the Union. But that fame was about to become a deadly burden. Every alien government that had heard about their success would expect them to somehow save beings whose biology was completely unknown. "Where's Jenny?" Marcus asked. "Already in Medical Base 7 with the casualties. She's trying to stabilize the most critical cases, but she's running out of options fast." Marcus raced toward the medical bay, passing crowds of worried aliens in the corridors. Many of them looked at him with desperate hope, as if his mere presence could somehow solve the crisis. The pressure was overwhelming. Medical Bay 7 looked like a battlefield triage center. Jenny moved frantically between treatment beds, her medical scanners working overtime as she tried to understand alien physiologies she'd never encountered. The casualties were like nothing in the Union medical databases. Beings with crystalline blood, creatures that existed partially in multiple dimensions, others whose life processes operated on completely different biological principles. "Talk to me, Jenny," Marcus said as he approached. "It's bad," she replied without looking up from a patient whose body seemed to be composed of living liquid metal. "This one's cellular structure is breaking down. I think it's some kind of massive system failure, but I can't figure out what's supposed to be normal for his species. These three over here are losing cohesion. They're literally falling apart at the molecular level. And I have no idea what's wrong with her." She gestured to a being that looked like a mobile plant covered in geometric patterns. "What do you need?" "Time, mostly, and about 50 years of research into xenobiology that doesn't exist yet." Healer Mordant entered the medical bay, flanked by 2 other ascended healers. For the first time since Marcus had known him, the ancient being looked genuinely concerned rather than arrogant. "Human Walsh," Mordant said formally, "we offer our assistance. The Union Council has authorized full cooperation between traditional healing methods and your technological approaches." Jenny paused in her work, surprised by the offer. "Any help would be appreciated, but I'm not sure traditional methods will work here. These species are so far outside normal Union biology that they might not respond to energy healing at all." "Perhaps," Mordant acknowledged, "but we must try something. Without intervention, they will all be dead within hours." As if to emphasize his point, one of the monitoring devices began alarming. The liquid metal being was experiencing some kind of systemic collapse, its metallic form losing coherence and beginning to pool on the treatment bed. Jenny grabbed her emergency kit and began working frantically, injecting stabilizing compounds and applying electrical stimulation to try to maintain the being's structural integrity. But without understanding the creature's basic biology, she was essentially guessing. "This isn't working," she muttered. "I need to understand how he's supposed to function before I can figure out how to fix him." "May I?" asked a new voice. Everyone turned to see Zareth entering the medical bay, his massive form somehow managing to move gracefully, despite the cramped space. "Zareth, what are you doing here?" "Word of the crisis has spread throughout the station," the dragon replied. "Many of us have come to offer what assistance we can, but more importantly, my mate has an idea that might help." Lyrelai glided into the medical bay, her silver scales gleaming under the medical lights. She was noticeably larger than before, her pregnancy progressing well thanks to Jenny's treatment. "Human Jenny," Lyrelai said formally. "In our culture, we have ancient knowledge of beings from the Outer Rim territories. These species were encountered by our ancestors during the first expansion wars, thousands of years ago. The knowledge is incomplete, but it might provide the foundation you need." "What kind of knowledge?" Jenny asked hopefully. "Basic biological principles, dietary requirements, environmental needs. Enough to understand what normal looks like for each species." Jenny stared at the dragon in amazement. "You're offering to share ancient draconic knowledge? I thought that was restricted to your own healers." "These beings are dying. Zareth said simply. Honor demands that we share what knowledge we possess. Besides, he added with something that might have been a smile, you have demonstrated that combining different approaches produces superior results. Over the next hour, an unprecedented collaboration took shape in Medical Bay 7. Lyrelai shared ancient draconic biological knowledge, describing the basic life processes of each alien species. Mordant and his fellow Ascended used their energy manipulation abilities to stabilize critical patients while Jenny worked. Commander Vex High contributed his species' harmonic resonance techniques to help maintain cellular cohesion in the failing patients. But the real breakthrough came when Jenny realized that her technological approach could be enhanced by combining it with the other species' natural abilities. Mordant, she called out, can you channel energy directly into this creature's core systems while I inject these stabilizing compounds? I think his biology requires both technological and energy-based intervention to function properly. Unprecedented, the Ascended healer muttered, but logical. He extended his energy tendrils while Jenny administered her treatment, and together they watched the liquid metal beings form, solidify, and stabilize. It's working, Jenny said with amazement. The combination is actually working better than either approach alone. Word of the collaborative treatment spread through the medical bay quickly. Soon, every patient was being treated by teams that combined human technology with traditional alien healing methods. The results were dramatic. Patients who had been dying minutes before began stabilizing and showing signs of recovery. But the real surprise came when they reached the plant-like being with geometric patterns. None of the traditional healing methods seemed to affect her at all, and Jenny's technology showed no response either. I don't understand, Jenny said, studying her scanner readings. She's alive, but nothing we're doing is having any effect. It's like she exists on a completely different biological level. Lyrelai moved closer to examine the patient, her enhanced senses picking up details that the others missed. The patterns on her surface, she said thoughtfully. They're moving, but very slowly. I think she might be operating on a different time scale than the rest of us. Different time scale? Marcus asked. Her life processes might be much slower than ours, Jenny realized. What seems like critical system failure to us might be normal metabolic function for her species. We're not seeing a medical emergency. We're seeing normal biology that operates over much longer time periods. To test the theory, Jenny adjusted her scanner to analyze biological processes over extended time frames rather than immediate function. The results were illuminating. The being's vital signs were actually completely normal when viewed over hours instead of minutes. She's not dying, Jenny announced to the room. She's healing herself, but at a rate that takes days instead of minutes. All we need to do is maintain her environmental requirements and let her natural processes work. The revelation led to a broader understanding that would reshape galactic medicine. Many species operated on completely different biological principles than the standard Union races, and effective treatment required understanding those principles rather than forcing alien biology to conform to familiar patterns. By the end of the crisis, all 37 casualties had been stabilized and were expected to make full recoveries. But more importantly, the medical teams had discovered something unprecedented, that combining technological and traditional healing methods could treat conditions that neither approach could handle alone. Commander Thylex called an emergency meeting of all department heads and species representatives to discuss what had happened. The station's main conference room was packed with beings who had never worked together before, all united by their shared experience of the medical crisis. Today has shown us something remarkable, Commander Thylex began. We have discovered that cooperation between different healing traditions can achieve results that none of them could accomplish individually. Healer Mordant stood to address the group, his mechanical form somehow managing to project humility. I must offer a formal apology, he said. My dismissal of human medical techniques was based on arrogance rather than wisdom. These past weeks have shown that technological medicine deserves full recognition as a valid healing art. More than that, added Commander Vexahai, we have learned that the combination of different approaches produces superior results to any single method. This suggests that our entire understanding of medical practice may need to be reconsidered. Jenny stepped forward, still wearing her medical uniform stained with various alien fluids. "If I may," she said quietly, "I think we've learned something even more important. We've learned that different doesn't mean inferior. Every species, every culture, every tradition has developed solutions to problems that others haven't solved. When we combine those solutions instead of competing with them, everyone benefits." The room fell silent as the implications of her words sank in. For thousands of years, galactic civilization had been built on hierarchy. Older species dominated newer ones. Traditional methods were considered superior to innovations, and each culture jealously guarded its knowledge from outsiders. But the medical crisis had demonstrated that sharing knowledge and combining different approaches could save lives that traditional methods couldn't reach. Zareth spoke into the silence, his deep voice carrying authority that commanded attention. "The humans have given us a gift," he said. "Not just their medical knowledge, but their approach to problem solving. They do not assume that old ways are always best. They test, they experiment, they adapt. This is wisdom." "Are you suggesting," asked a Verdani representative, "that we should abandon traditions that have served us for millennia?" "Not abandon," Marcus interjected. "Enhance, build upon. Your traditions are valuable, but they're not perfect. Neither is our technology, but together they can accomplish things that neither could achieve alone." Over the following days, the station became the site of an impromptu medical conference as representatives from dozens of species arrived to learn about the collaborative healing methods that had emerged from the crisis. The combination techniques were tested, refined, and adapted for different alien physiologies. The results were consistently impressive. Conditions that had been considered untreatable for centuries were suddenly manageable. Medical knowledge that had been closely guarded by individual species was shared freely, leading to breakthroughs in understanding alien biology. But the changes went far beyond medicine. The success of the collaborative approach began influencing other fields as well. Engineering projects that had been stalled for decades were completed in weeks when human technological innovation was combined with alien traditional methods. Scientific research accelerated as different species shared their unique perspectives on universal problems. 3 months after the initial incident with Lyra Lay's pregnancy, Marcus found himself facing a situation he never could have imagined. The humble construction foreman had become the unofficial coordinator of the largest interspecies collaboration project in Union history. "How are you handling all this?" Jenny asked as they watched the latest batch of alien medical students practicing combined healing techniques. "Honestly, I'm just trying to keep up," Marcus replied. 6 months ago, we were just building a space station. Now we're accidentally revolutionizing galactic civilization. Any regrets? Marcus watched as a young draconic healer worked alongside a crystalline singer and an ethereal energy manipulator, all of them learning to integrate their abilities with human medical technology. The sight would have been unthinkable just months before. "None," he said firmly. "This is what the Union was supposed to be about. Different species working together, each contributing their strengths to solve common problems. We just helped it actually happen." Zareth approached them, landing gracefully on the observation deck. Lyra was beside him, now clearly near the end of her pregnancy, but radiating health and vitality. "Humans, Marcus and Jenny," Zareth said formally. "The Western Reaches Council has asked me to extend an invitation. They wish to establish a permanent medical exchange program between our species. Dragons would learn human technological methods, while humans would study our life force manipulation techniques. "That's a tremendous honor," Jenny replied. "We'd be happy to participate." "There is more," Lyralai added. "The Council has voted to support human admission to the inner circle of the Union, full membership with voting rights and representation in all major decisions." Marcus stared at the dragons in shock. The inner circle was reserved for the oldest, most established species in the galaxy. Humans had been expecting to wait at least another century before being considered for full membership. "How is that possible?" he asked. "We've only been in space for 50 years. "Age is not the only measure of wisdom," Zareth replied. "Your species has shown that it can adapt to any situation, solve problems that others cannot, and bring diverse groups together for the common good. These are the qualities that true leaders possess." "Besides," Lyralai added with obvious amusement, "the medical revolution you started has convinced most of the Union that humans are far more dangerous as outsiders than as full partners. Better to have you inside the system where your disruptive innovations can be properly managed." As the weeks passed, the changes continued to cascade through Union society. The rigid hierarchy that had dominated galactic politics for millennia began to give way to a more flexible system based on demonstrated capability rather than species age or traditional authority. Human medical techniques became standard practice throughout Union space, but they were always used in combination with traditional methods rather than replacing them. The collaborative approach became the new gold standard for problem-solving in every field, from engineering to diplomacy. The construction station where it all began was eventually completed, becoming the first true interspecies collaborative facility in Union history. Every major species contributed to its design and operation, creating a model for future projects. Jenny established the first Galactic Medical Academy, where healers from across the Union learned to combine technological and traditional methods. The Academy's motto, suggested by Zareth, was simple: different together. Marcus continued his work as a construction foreman, but his projects now regularly involved coordinating teams from dozens of different species. His approach to management, treating every being as a valuable contributor regardless of their species' age or traditional status, became the standard for interspecies cooperation throughout the Union. And it all started with a simple act of kindness: a human doctor treating a pregnant dragon with methods that seemed strange and primitive to the rest of the galaxy. Years later, when historians tried to pinpoint the moment that the old Union ended and the new one began, they would point to that day when Zareth led his pregnant mate to a human foreman for help. None of them could have known that such a small gesture would trigger a revolution that would reshape galactic civilization itself. But perhaps that was the most human thing about it. The revolution had begun not with grand plans or dramatic declarations, but with someone simply trying to help a being in need. In the end, that attitude of practical compassion proved more powerful than any weapon or any ancient wisdom. The chaos that followed wasn't destruction, it was growth. And in a galaxy that had been stagnant for millennia, growth was exactly what was needed.